All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor. I am one of your hosts, Spencer Sutton, and I've got with me today Gray Hall. Gray, welcome to the show. And I do want to say before you say anything, thank you for hosting last week with Noel.
I had to see if I had the intro memorized, and I think I nailed it.
I listened back to it. I listened back, and I told Matthew, I was like, he really did sound a lot like me, so it was good.
I've heard it 1,000 times, so hopefully I represented you well.
You did. No, I appreciate you doing that. It was a great episode on the Tenant Bill of Rights. But today we're going to take a different route. We've got a special guest with us from Sarasota, Florida. We have Martin Saenz, who is the founder and the partner of Bequest Funds. And Martin, man, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, gentlemen. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you about this because Gray and I are interested to learn more, and we're going to be talking about distressed note investing. You know, I remember back when I was in doing a lot of Birmingham stuff and wholesaling a lot of property, somebody came to me with a distressed note, but it was a multifamily in probably a D- area of town, and they were asking me about would I be interested in buying the note. I said no because I didn't really know anything about it. So, and then I also have Gray and I have a buddy here, Brian, who actually buys houses. He holds the note though. So what we're talking about though is something completely different. So as we get into this, why don't we kick off, Martin, and you just tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into real estate investing and then specifically into distressed note investing.
Sure. So in 2004, I got fired from a corporate job, and my wife and I, we made a decision. We're like, we're just, that's not the pathway for us. And we had started reading some books from an unknown guy you guys have never heard of. His name's Robert Kiyosaki, and you know, inspired the heck out of us. And you know, we were, sky was the limit after Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. Right. And I still reread Cash Flow Quadrant. I've read it at least 10 times since, and it's just so inspiring. And but you know, the one thing we kind of took away from it is that you know, you can come in and start bird dogging and all these ways to be scrappy to build yourself into the real estate business, but it's also it can be advisable to just start a business so you can build cash flow and then spend some of the cash flow off into real estate acquisitions, and that's kind of what we did. We launched a government contracting company in 2005, selling to the federal government, and then in 2009 we purchased our first property. And how we did it is we actually outgrew our house, working out of our home. And so I went on Craigslist and I saw a property for sale, and this person just wanted out of landlording. And I said, well, will you take back a note? And he said, put 10% down. I'll finance 90%. So he took back a note for 15 years, and I learned something there. Or I learned a few things, but I learned that he had on he asked for a no prepayment clause. So if you prepaid anytime from month 0 to month 180, you had to pay full reinstatement, and with principal and interest. And so that's the first tactic I learned. As I later sold properties with seller notes, and then the next month I bought the neighboring building, and that was already leased up, and so just started rolling profits into properties. Sold that company in 2013 and started buying mortgage notes.
So you sold the government contracting business in 2013?
Yes.
Nice. So you got out of the business then to focus on distressed note buying.
Yes. And by the way, I would much prefer holding a note on a Class D property that's fully distressed than selling to the federal government bureaucrats. So I'm just saying.
Right, yeah. Right. But you were in Virginia doing that, but we talked about you were in Fredericksburg, which is just far enough away from DC. But you could still sell to them.
Yeah, I was at the Pentagon for many years with the contract we held, and day and night, and just I've seen all the abuses that you can that you can imagine, that you hear about.
Right. Yeah. So talk a little bit about like what is a distressed note? Like what constitutes a distressed note? How long does maybe a note go unpaid before it's classified as distressed?
Typically 90 days. So beyond 90 days late, it becomes distressed or labeled distressed. Now the mortgages that I started buying and still buy today at a larger level are mortgages that are bank originated. So they're originated with Fannie and Freddie underwriting guidelines. They're securitized, Wells Fargo, PNC, those type of bank originated mortgages. And the homeowner stops making a payment, and then they get bundled into tranches, sold into the secondary mortgage market at a discount. And so I started buying those mortgages and picking up the phone, calling the homeowner, working out a payment plan that they could afford. And it was just a win-win. But I originally went into the mortgage note business thinking it was a backdoor way of obtaining a property.
Right.
But I quickly found out, screw the property, I'll take the monthly payments.
That's what you wanted anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you were thinking, hey, they are behind in their mortgage. They're not going to likely pay. We'll work some way where either I can foreclose on the house and I will get it because I pay a discount on the original loan, and I can get houses at discounts, and then I can own the homes and then rent them out. That was the original strategy.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And then I would pick up the phone and call someone, and they would say, oh, I got my job back. I got a new job. I can make payments and I want to stay in my home. And then I'm like, well, can you put a down payment? What can you do? And they're like, yeah, we can do a down payment, and then we can pay these monthly payments. And it stretches out my break even, versus just taking back the property and flipping it. But, I've also learned that when you take back the property, I mean, you guys know copper bandits, every kind of horror story can occur. There was a sinkhole in one of the properties that I took back early on, and I couldn't see the bottom. I actually visited the property. I couldn't see where the bottom of the sinkhole landed. It was just like,
so you sold that one as a handyman special, correct?
The handyman special. Yeah. So yeah, I learned early on that long distance landlording, no thank you. Long distance borrowers that pay you monthly. We have them all throughout the country. We own over 1,000 mortgages now. And the mission is keeping homeowners in their homes with payments they can afford while making a profit for our company. And that's kind of served us well.
So I think walk us through how did you get there? So, hey, you bought that first house. It was seller financed. And then what was kind of the transition? Because you kind of went from point A to point B. Kind of walk us through that.
Sure. So yeah, my first purchase was 10 first mortgage notes in Ohio. So then I got in my car, I drove to Ohio, I visited the properties from the outside because I came at it from a real estate investor mindset, right? It's all about the underlying collateral. You gotta, climb the tree, check out the roof,
That's right.
How's the window? How it looks on the outside is probably indicative of how it looks on the inside, like all this other stuff, right? And then I realized that you get what you focus on from a due diligence standpoint. So I was initially focused on the property, and guess what? I got the property back. And then I shifted the due diligence model to focus on the homeowner and what is their ability to pay? And so I look at the property from due diligence, and I look at the borrower and their ability to pay. And then I started selecting notes based on that criteria, that these people look like they're back on track. They just need to square up with me. So I purchased those notes, and then I would reach out and just work out an arrangement that worked for everybody.
So what does the due diligence look like if you're looking at the borrower or the person living in the home? What does that due diligence look like? And are you talking to them on the phone? Are you doing anything pre-purchase? So what does the pre-purchase diligence look like?
Yeah, you're not allowed to have any interaction with the homeowner before purchasing the mortgage. So that's highly frowned upon. I would never do that. What you can do is you can pull credit reports, you can do credit risk analysis, you can pull skip tracing, bankruptcy searches, and to kind of get an idea. And then on the property side, you pull a title report. You're looking for owner occupied status. What's your lien position? Is your lien valid? How about that? Statute of limitations. Hello. And then you're taking all this data, merging it, scoring it, and then that helps you determine the price point you're going to pay for that mortgage note.
And so you don't have to buy them then in a package, right? You don't have to buy a certain number, or are you picking out just like individual notes? You mentioned that.
When there was more of a retail playing field, when I started, you could cherry pick all day long. I could go and it was like a bird feeder. I could just keep going back. I'd peck at some seeds and then go away for a month, come back and peck at some more seeds. And as much as I wanted to go to the well, and there was always water, I pulling up on the buckets. But then it got more competitive. Retail marketplace for notes has dried up. It's been tried for a number of years. Yep. And all the action moved upstream. And so we scaled and moved our company upstream. And now we're, I'd say, a good, strong mid-level buyer. We buy in pools of mortgages, and we'll buy a 20 mortgage pool, 100 mortgage pool, 200 mortgage pool at this point.
So if I want to go out and buy, where did you buy your first one? Can you go out and buy, one of these? Like, where do you find that? And then, where are these deals kind of shopped around when you start getting to the, 100, 200 pools?
Yeah. So there used to be a company called FCI Exchange. And so it's an online marketplace. You could just log on, look through notes, make an offer like eBay, and then buy it. And collateral files will get shipped to you and whatnot. They have closed up shop. There's another company that I highly recommend that seems like, they're the big dogs, and they're very credible, and I've had a great relationship with them. Their name is PaperStack. So they may be the last online marketplace where people can go and shop for notes. But with that said, I'm just saying, I've written 4 books on mortgage note investing and cash flow investing. And I can't emphasize enough that one should seek massive levels of education before spending a dollar, and that you're going to get educated with your dollar too. But read the book.
You can buy your book or buy a note. Either way, you're going to learn.
Yeah, go to conferences, listen to the industry speakers, get involved with social media groups, and listen to podcasts like yours, and just get as much education, because the regulatory environment is brutal right now. It used to be the Wild West. Note investors could do what they want. Now every state has nuances, has compliance that needs to be adhered to, and if you come out and you're not conscious of that, and you're not prepared with the compliance strategy as it relates to your note investing, then it could really catch you up poorly.
Talk about, when you're contacting these homeowners, and this is really interesting to me. So you're buying a pool of 100 notes, you're contacting each one of these homeowners. You mentioned trying to get them back on a payment plan. We're very familiar with payment plans. We do this with the residents who get behind on their rent. We're like, hey, we would rather not go through an eviction process. We would rather not you move out. We'd actually rather help you catch up however we can and keep you in that property, because a vacant property is not good for an owner of real estate. Like you already know that.
Yeah. So
talk about that process and how successful is it when you're talking to these people? Because if they're 90 days, but I imagine when you take them over, I don't know, but I imagine if they were 90 before they turned distressed, could they be 6 months behind on their mortgage or what?
We buy these puppies and they're 3 to 10 years behind.
What? 6 months is a cakewalk. What's like an ideal one for him?
No one's flipping paper that's only 6 months old. They're just going to hold it and try to get people back on track. So you can't go that long in the real estate side. So I get it. Someone doesn't pay a month. They need a new job. You're like, hey, I'll take your security deposit, make it, this month's rent, or you can just kind of do all your thing. But in the mortgage note side, banks will hold on to mortgages to the detriment of the homeowner, because per diem interest accrues on their account plus late fees. And so banks, because they're so incompetent, so large and all this and that, they don't really work with the homeowner well. So what happens is the homeowner just kind of ducks and dodges, and before you know it, 3-4 years has passed. The bank's like, oh, okay, well, let me bundle it up in this pool and sell it off as a discount into the secondary mortgage market. And that's where we pick it up.
Why don't they foreclose on that property and remove the person living there?
2 reasons. For one, the banks make their money on lending. So they're not very competent when it comes to foreclosure process. And when they do foreclose, they're paying, 5x what a mom and pop, a hedge fund is going to pay to do the same foreclosure process. They have a lot more hoops to go to. And 2, it's a PR nightmare. So they're not looking to be, on the front page as like displacing families. So to them, banks do what banksters do, right? They're going to do internal charge-offs. They're going to move around figures on their balance sheet, and then they're going to flip the paper for a discount and keep on lending money with, the Fed with borrowed funds.
There's probably a lot of that post-08, like foreclosing and the banks owning. They did not want to be in the ownership business, and they'd rather take a discount, right off, a discount if the mortgage is 150, sell it off for 100 and kind of call it a $50K loss, opposed to go through the headache of owning the whole house.
Yeah. So when we get the paper, we have the tough conversation with the homeowner. In most cases, they have no idea that every day they haven't made a payment, $5, $10, $20 has been added to their balance. And so it becomes an astronomical number. We find out, we try to work with them, work with their interest rates, stretch out their terms, give them certain concessions to meet their budget. Because you guys understand this on the property side. If you don't give someone a payment they can afford, then it's not sustainable. They're just going to get busted out, a few months down the road.
So you're adjusting their current mortgage. You're not creating a new mortgage for them.
Correct. We do not originate. So when we buy the mortgages, we assume all the rights and responsibilities of the originating lender. So we can modify the terms of the mortgage.
And how do you make money on this? So kind of walk us through sample deal, what some of the sample numbers would be, like what you would pay for it, some ways that you would make adjustments, and how you're making yield kind of on the backside.
Sure. So take a mortgage where there's like $100,000 principal balance, and they haven't paid in 3-4 years. We pick it up for $50K. We get on the phone. We realize, they got remarried, they got their health back, they got their job back, and now they can start making payments. So we modify their loan at $100,000, and so they might put a few $1,000s down. Now we have just recouped about $2,000 off $50K purchase, right? And so we're in for 48, and we have a performing mortgage at $100K par.
And so you'd set up, hey, I can afford $300 a month, and you figure out what the interest rate would be and how long the amortization would be. And you might stretch that past the 30 years. Are you making like 40, 50-year loans, or are you doing lump sum balloon payments?
No. Yeah, all the loans we do, I mean, we're at 30 years for the most part, fully amortized. We always do fixed rate. We don't believe in adjustable rate mortgages. We think that's just criminal. I think I don't know it's any other way to say it. I think it's a disservice to many people that aren't good with money. Right. They can't foresee down the road or whatever. So fixed rate, we want them to be able to pay their mortgage off at some point in their life so they can have that home for themselves at retirement. That's important to us.
So talk about you've done a number of these. Mm-hmm. What's the success rate? You've done 1,000 of these. You've got 70 some odd $1 million worth of notes. Like, what's the success? How many houses out of 100 are you taking back?
So this is unbelievable. And this, when I first started doing this, it was 10%. You're taking back 10% of the properties. They're filing BK 10% of the time, which, by the way, we're about there at that point where people are going to be filing BK like crazy again. I mean, I don't think the public was really ready for that, but that you were going to see a lot of filings, I think, with where people are at with consumer credit. But 10% into BK, 10% deed in lieu and other kinds of special resolutions, and then 70% modification. In today's climate, we are foreclosing on less than 1% of our portfolio, which is insane. This is a distressed portfolio where people are, probably on average about 4 years in default, and we're foreclosing less than 1%. I want to say it's because we're awesome, and which we are. We have a great team. When we hire asset managers, like, compassion is the number one thing we're looking for. We treat homeowners with respect. We treat them with transparency. We give them options when they come back on. Because what we learned is this is probably never before heard here. But if you treat people with kindness and respect, they're more inclined to pay you. Right? Isn't that
right?
Revelation.
It's amazing.
So that's what we do. And as a result of that, plus, the fair market value explosions in the country, and people have equity coverage, and the wealth effect, we're foreclosing less than 1% of the time. And most of our resolutions end in loan modifications in the 80s, somewhere in the 80s.
So modifying 80% of the loans, the other 20% might be selling the property?
To sell the property, we get paid off, or they refi us out.
Yeah, I was about to say the market's been really good, right? And probably people are less hesitant to give up that property because they've gotten this equity over the past 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's the wealth effect. They feel like, they have their property's worth a lot more. That's just where they are in their minds. With that said, now once the paper seasons, because you asked, like, what's the long game on this? And so once the paper becomes reseasoned, so that is the homeowner's making 12 consistent on-time payments, 24 months of on-time payments, then we consider that reperforming. And then, after a year, it's considered performing again. As long as it meets other underwriting criteria, we sell those mortgages into our income fund. So we have a mortgage note income fund that we bring on investor dollars. And so we have accredited investors, 506c Reg D. They come in, they put $100K in, we pay them a 9% annual preferred return. We make our payments on a monthly basis. So the business model is simple. We actually cash out when we make the sale from the collection company into the income fund. And then we buy the mortgages in at a 12% yield, and then we pay out the investors 9%. Homeowners make their payments monthly. We pay the investors monthly.
So are these mortgages 12% to the homeowner? Is that how you're making the spread there?
No, they're 12%. That's the purchase price, 12% yield.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
So yeah, 12%. So we buy them in at a discount, and then we pay out the investors not. And we're launching a new fund this month that has a 10 and 11% preferred return option. It's fixed. There's no upside.
What are the risks on that for the investors? And I guess like globally for your business, like it's probably less risky right now when home prices appreciate and there's equity sitting in there. So do y'all look at equity across the portfolio? You're in a good spot. You made mention macroeconomic factors are changing. There may be a recession, consumer credit is going up. Like, how do y'all think about risk in that? And that seems to be the biggest risk because you aren't necessarily concerned with people paying or not, because if you can sell it, you can recoup that money. So how do y'all think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And Gray, you're very talkative. You had mentioned Spencer, I know, as being talkative, but
Gray is the voice of this podcast. No, he can have it. I promise you.
I think Gray's ready to take it over.
He is. Well, 100% is. If he didn't have so much stuff already to do, he probably would.
Yeah. But to talk about two metrics that are critical are in equity coverage. So investment to value. Our fund calls out a portfolio that sits at 65% investment to value. Since we're buying these mortgages in at a discount, there's instant equity. The portfolio is sitting at 61% investment to value, not loan to value, because we buy them in at a discount. So there's 39% equity coverage on the portfolio. We also look at collectability. So we're at 96.8% collectability on our mortgages. So 96.8% are paying as they should. And the industry standard's at about 90%. So we're hitting above that. And now that I do attribute to how our asset managers work with the homeowners. They build relationships. That's critical. Like homeowners get treated like they are paying customers.
And do those asset managers transition from the distress fund to the income fund and keep that relationship going?
We actually have our team. Actually, we have a majority of our team handles distressed paper and distressed mortgages, and then we have a person dedicated to the performing mortgage portfolio. So their job is like a concierge to really get to know all the homeowners that are paying, because we want a comfort level. If Susie loses her job, then we want Susie to have the comfort level to go and pick up the phone and let us know, hey, I lost my job. I need a month. What can we do to buy me a little time to get back on my feet? And we're able to have that humane conversation where they're not just, the homeowner's not just picking up the phone and calling someone they've never spoken to. So we like to build those relationships. Now, as far as the market, like from more of a macro perspective, unemployment layoffs are starting to happen, especially, tech sector. Blue collar sector is probably not going to have the layoffs. It's probably going to be strong. I mean, we understand, consumer debt all-time high, 16 trillion or something like that. And, something's hitting the fan soon. I think we all kind of know that. So there's going to be more of a challenge on the collectability side of things. And we're kind of prepared for that because we did work through the 2008, crisis. I've been landlording and, we kind of been through that turbulent time. So we'll be hands-on. Now, from a positive perspective, there's going to be lower cost inventory. So there'll be more access to inventory. Pricing will go down for inventory. So kind of like.
That's what I was about to ask you. Well, like if things do slow down in the market and, the market turns, do you see retail investors, like the person who wants to buy a couple of notes, will they be able to get back into it? Because you said that's kind of dried up.
So there's a risk with that, and that is compliance. So if compliance didn't have the presence that it has today, I would say yes. It's just the evolution of things. The retail market will spike, because their inventory is abundant and everything's flowing, trickle down, right? Trickle down. But what happens is, if you're a retail investor, if you're not conscious of rules and regulations, you can lose your shirt and beyond, because these regulators, they don't play. I mean, they want their licensing fee. They want you to do X, Y, Z, how they want you to do it. And if you're not playing by the rules and you get caught on the wrong side of it, it could be really damaging. So the retail folks, when they come back in, have to be really aware of that.
I like the sound of this at first. You said you still get paid, because as property managers, we still have to collect the money, and as investors, we have to collect the money. But you also have the responsibility of fixing things when they go wrong. But you're kind of scaring me here with all this legislation. And,
well, he didn't want you buying all his mortgages. He didn't want the market.
He didn't want the competition. Yeah.
This is a typical Scooby-Doo episode. I'm trying to chase you off the reservation here. You don't ever come back. But no, in all honesty, we are gonna. I think we are headed. I had kind of lost my train of thought on the Scooby-Doo thing. But if one really wants to do it, I mean, I've written books on note investing made easier. It's just, I gave the whole game plan, how to launch your own business. You just have to account for compliance, and you can do that through using attorneys, and it's going to cost you a little more. So you get like an in-house systems in place as it relates to compliance. So it is achievable for sure.
Yeah. And what's kind of next for your business? So y'all are fully in note investing. Like what's the vision for, the next 10 or 20 years for you?
Yeah. So, how about next 10, 20 days? We're launching our next fund, this month, as soon as we get, the blessing from our SEC attorney. And that's actually going to have 2 additional pillars. So we're merging in the commercial real estate, that we acquire, and we primarily focus on medical office buildings. And so we're going to merge that as a second pillar, as well as some energy investing as well into oil and gas with Bitcoin mining. And so that's going to offer a higher preferred return. Over the course of time, pricing's been really tight on the performing mortgage side, especially like the type of mortgages we buy. We buy residential mortgages on owner-occupied properties in suburban and tertiary markets around the country. These are good 400K homes in middle America where there's jobs. And so we look at all these factors when we're running due diligence, and these are very desirable mortgages. So our rate of growth in the capital we're raising is outpacing our access to the inventory to these mortgages. So we're having to kind of merge other investment pillars that we have been doing into this blended package.
And that was office/medical, and then oil and gas. That's through Bitcoin mining?
And Bitcoin mining off of the flared natural gas. So we're capturing that and to power generators that mine Bitcoin.
That's why I like this podcast, because you learn new stuff. I had no idea you could do that.
Bitcoin miner. I'm a Bitcoiner.
And the commercial real estate is, y'all are just owning that kind of typical buy and hold and triple net leases.
It's a long-term play. We look for value add through the lease up. So we're looking for lower occupancy. Landlord maybe, hasn't been updating cosmetic things around the building. We're not looking for any construction value add to the major construction overhaul. Just a lot of TLC, a lot of good customer service. Let's get it leased up and exit out after 5 years.
Yeah. So probably buy when you're buying those on income. If they're under occupied, you can get them for a lower price, and you do the work to get those up and get the cap rate up, and then you can sell those. And so, the 2 themes there are, you can create a lot of value whenever you buy these distressed notes. They're not paying, you get them paying, and you reap the value on the back end. Same thing with a fix and flip, you get that value, and same thing with commercial. So, yeah, very cool. And there's a whole lot of ways to make money in real estate. And yeah, it was just helpful for me. I'd asking a bunch of dumb questions, and hopefully that's helpful for somebody out there who also is kind of the first time learning about note investing.
No, and I'm probably one of the few guests that hasn't mentioned the word multifamily. So we don't invest in multifamily. So we leave it for all. It's so hot, we leave it for all the.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cut that down to the show. I have no multifamily rule.
Yeah. No, this is good. A lot of our investors are absolutely single family investors from around the country, and but we do have multifamily. Well, Martin, this has been great.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to talk. I mean, I read articles about what Goldman Sachs doing, BlackRock to the single family industry, and I mean, there's going to be a reckoning that take place. I think when Wall Street starts to pull away.
We'll see. I mean, they certainly have upped their game the past couple of years with the investment in the single family. And so, yeah, interesting to see what will happen going forward.
And they've overpaid in a lot of cases too.
Yeah, prices adjusting. Some of these markets, like you see Phoenix, and where I live in Denver is kind of another one of those. Atlanta's another market that they're heavy in, and those are historical boom and bust. At least Phoenix is, and so we'll see after the bidding wars, because it got pretty crazy. I think they still only own about 5%, but about 25% of purchases in the past couple of years have been institutional investors, and so it will certainly be interesting how much they can move the market. Being 5% of the market, and some people think they'll continue to buy in, and they set a new price floor, and others think that they'll pull out, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, we're already there to buy the distress.
Yeah, I was about to say we're buying it.
We'll manage it either way, so we're up on either side.
That's right. Well, great, Martin, man. This has been great. This has been fantastic. So if somebody wanted to learn more about like you, your fund, what you're doing, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Is it like to just go and find your books on Amazon?
Well, you can do that. You can email me at martin@bqfunds.com. And I don't mind. I don't care if you don't have interest in our fund like that. If you have a question, I'm more than willing to help. And I'll email you a living financial statement. So I've been doing a financial statement for my family for the past 10 years, and we meet on it weekly. So I'm religious. I'm fanatical about having a living financial statement that people help them keep on track with their finances. So I will email that back if someone emails out.
That's awesome. We'll have your contact information in the show notes of this podcast. And again, we appreciate you being here. We learned a lot, and that was fantastic. And we'll be back next week with another episode of the Evernest Real Estate Investor Podcast.